But it's very important that we train our caucus leaders so that we can run some of the best caucuses in the state of Colorado and maybe the country, the way things are going. So, yes, basically what we're doing here, most of you are volunteers that will be leading your precincts. You're going to be me. I'm going to pretend to lead this precinct here. You're going to watch. We're going to kind of pretend to be a full site. Pat Gowski's our site leader. That's kind of going to be the plan. We're going to try to get this done in an hour, hour and a half. We're going to watch here. We're also putting this on video so that people can watch it later and understand how Colorado caucuses work, because it is different than maybe what you've seen on TV. So, without further ado, there's a lot that happens on front at the site. Okay, so each site will have a site manager. We're pretending this is Pat, is our site manager, and at least 2 other volunteers to help with check-in. We'll have someone else that will have an alphabetical list of everyone that are registered Democrats by February 14th that should be at that site. We're getting a lot of questions about 17-year-olds that turn 18 by November 3rd. Yes, they can caucus. If you are 17, if someone is 17, turns 18 by the general election day, and they're pre-registered as a Democrat, they can caucus with us. They can also vote in the presidential primary. So that is a new law, part of the new reforms that have happened this year. Again, if someone is 17, if you know someone, your children, grandchildren, nieces and nephews, people you know, 17 years old right now, but will turn 18 on or before November 3rd, general election day, and they have pre-registered to vote, because you can do that early, at 16, when they have their driver's license. If they are registered to vote by February 14th, registered as a Democrat, they can caucus. Caucus is for registered Democrats. We define a registered Democrat to be someone that is registered in your precinct by February 14th. That is our cutoff line. So unaffiliates can vote in the primaries, but Democrats are the ones that can caucus. Just like Democrats are the only ones that can sign petitions. So we as Democrats, registered Democrats, are the ones that help narrow the field down and then eventually put out to the larger group of Democrats and unaffiliates that can vote in the primary. This is part of the narrowing down process. All right, so people are going to come in. So I heard a time. I want to make sure that we've decided these times because I want to make decisions today and then stick with them. So we're saying we'd like precinct leaders
they're half an hour early.
to be there by, and I'm going to say the wrong time too, so catch me, because I may default to 7 p.m. Tuesday time. So 1:30 on Saturday, March 7th. That is when we would love for you to show up. So if you're going to volunteer, thank you very much for volunteering to be a precinct leader, or precinct chair, we're going to kind of call this. We'd love for you to be there at 1:30 at your site. Okay, again, there's going to be site manager, also some registration volunteers. And so people will start coming whenever they start to come. In 2016, they started coming like 2 hours early. There were people sitting there waiting for me when I showed up at my site. So they're going to come in, they're going to look their name up on the alphabetical list. They are going to find their precinct number. If they are not on the alphabetical list, that's why we have another volunteer to help figure out why they may not be registered. It could be something simple, that they haven't updated their voter registration information. They could be a confidential voter. But the registration people will take care of those issues. If they get a voter affidavit, they will bring that to your table. At your table, 7. I'm looking for page 7. On page 7, you're going to have a much thicker, longer page of every registered Democrat by February 14th that lives in your precinct. You are responsible for checking them in. So they will come to your table. They should be on your list. The only other way to vote in your precinct is that they bring you the affidavit form after they've checked with our site check-in volunteers. So you'll be checking people in. Carol, help me. What do we want people to do when they check in? We want them to check attendee and sign?
Check attendee and sign. Everything else will be filled in by the caucus secretary as you go through the meeting. Who's elected delegate, that sort of thing. And look at if your email address is on there and your phone number, just double check it and make sure it's correct. If not, there'll be a form there with you can update your contact information.
So, between 6:30 and 7, you're going to be at your table with your packet.
1:30 and 2 or 2:30?
There we go. Between 1:30 and 2. Right? Yeah, please hold me accountable. Half hour before caucus starts. Caucus starts at 2. You're going to be checking people in. They're going to check that they're an attendee, and they're going to sign by their name. That is your part of check-in. If they're not on the list, they should produce a voter affidavit form, and then you can add them to this.
Jerry?
Yeah.
The little card.
And then you will give them, new this year, we just decided this, for sake of transparency, you will, as they sign and issue them an index card with the precinct number on it. And so you want them to write their name on it. That's what we're going to do?
After they vote, they'll sign.
Okay. So you as a precinct leader are going to issue them the card. So I have given all of you cards. We did not bring them. We don't have all the props. I have given you all a card that says 299. That's our precinct. We're Lieutenant Precinct 299. I also have a card I get to vote. Okay. And then Deb, what were you saying?
You let them know who their site managers are, if we know who they are.
I do not know them right now. But that is something maybe at the end we could talk about the site managers that have been assigned. Okay, you have a list. Okay. So, people are checking in, they're excited. You're having them fill out this, signing, checking that they're an attendee. You're giving them their cards with the precinct number. At 2 o'clock, the site manager in front of the site will call it to order.
Okay, question.
Yes.
My precinct has a lot of college students, so I would imagine there will be many of them that are not listed because they're not permanent residents of Greeley. So they have, when they get past the door, however, whatever they do, which I don't care to hear what they do, whatever they do at the door to get on an okay to be there, then they present that card or something
Affidavit.
to me, and then I would add their name to my list.
That's what we want, right? Yep.
There's a contact information list
Page 4.
for them to sign.
That is-
It's in the packet.
Okay. And then did Halisi get back to you? Okay. So when I read the law, which all this is governed in state law, by the way, the Republicans operate the same way. The parties are organized under state statute. And they just updated statutes. Statutes say you must be registered to vote in your precinct 22 days in advance, which is February 14th, and registered with that party. We've had some other questions to that law in the previous years. We're going to get a ruling from the state party and inform the site managers and how to deal with the affidavits. So, Lavon, does that answer all your questions?
And Sharon, on page 8 is where they add the people that aren't on the official attendance.
So on page 8, you can add extra people or update their email address.
Right. But they have to have that affidavit.
Yes.
And page 4 is the application.
And page 4 is the affidavit. Please tell all of your friends. Please post on social media, register, check your voter registration, make sure it's done by Valentine's Day. You're affiliated with the party by Valentine's Day. It will help us out. We're going to pump it out on our Weld County Dem social media. Please have your friends double check their registration so there's no questions. We have, I don't know if this is going to be a blessing or a curse with having the presidential primary ballots start being sent out on Monday. They're coming to you on Monday, guys. Like, some people will start to realize they didn't get their presidential primary ballot, and we'll go in and update their voter registration so they get a primary ballot. So if they do that by the 14th, hopefully that will help a lot of our registration issues. All right, so it is 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon, March 7th. Hopefully it's a wonderful day. Pat is calling us to order.
All right, we are calling this meeting to order. It's now 2 o'clock and it's time to begin our caucus for our precinct. We will start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we will not do that now. So you would have, what we have is, in many of the gyms, there are not flags, okay, or in the school classrooms that we're in. So we do have a small flag that will be included in the packet that you get. So please hold up the packet, the flag, you know what I mean, and pledge allegiance to it. That's the first thing. Then you can read the caucus rules, and that's on the next page. If you are, wherever you are, there's caucus rules. Here they are. It's a page and a half.
What page is that?
9 and 10. And this is optional.
Summarize.
Yeah, you can read them over and summarize them. I recommend that when you get there, I'm now stepping aside from being the caucus, I recommend when you get there, you look carefully at your packet. When you open your packet up, do not spread your papers all out on the table because they're in sequential order. So what you do is you just follow the page. And when you get to this part, you should read over all of the stuff that is in the packet so that you can, based upon the receptivity of your audience, you can either paraphrase or you can read word for word. We have created scripts for each of the actions that you need to take. Because many of you, or not you, but people in the precinct may step up to volunteer and they have never seen this stuff before. And so we have created scripts for them. So, okay, now back to, you've read the rules or you've paraphrased them. And then you will turn to your caucus leaders, your precinct caucus leader, and you will say, leader, it's now time for you to take over and you're to elect your captain and or your secretary or tellers. Okay, that could help you count things.
Yep.
There you go.
And at most sites, we might have also surrogate speakers, similar to what we did today. So a lot of our local candidates actually will be hopping between sites. If they have surrogates, they must speak at the beginning, after the pledge, or before the rules. So if there are U.S. Senate surrogates that are going through the caucus process, or CD4 surrogates, congressional district, that are going through the caucus process, that is allowable for them to speak in front of the whole site at once for 1 minute, 2 minutes for a real live person. So that's all happened. We're going to pretend like that's all happened. Pat has now kicked all of us in our local precincts. I'm going to stand up and say, officially the law is if you're an incumbent precinct committee person, you can call your own precinct to order. If both of you are there, you can flip a coin for it. Or if neither of them are there, you can just stand up and say, hey, I'd like to call this to order. Our first order of business is we need to elect a caucus chair. So, I went to this caucus training on February 8th. It was really good. I learned a lot. So, I'm willing to serve as chair. Are there any others?
I nominate Jared as caucus chair.
I second.
Okay, and you can do formal votes. And people like to say aye and have the opportunity to say no to make it very official. Are there any other nominations? All those in favor of me being the caucus chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
The ayes have it. We won't really have this at caucus.
That was the most aggressive gavel of the day.
I want to nominate Linda for secretary.
Okay, so the next order of business is we would like to have a caucus secretary. Lynn, are you willing to be the secretary?
She nominated me.
Cool, are you
second.
Oh,
willing?
yes, there's a good.
Any others?
I'll second.
All those in favor of Lynn being the caucus secretary, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
The ayes have it. So now Lynn is responsible for paperwork. That is really the duties of caucus secretary. So we're going to pretend to have paperwork. Okay, but when we record, when we turn in, I mean, we're really going to do it together and turn in all the paperwork, but that is the person to make sure that things are recorded, these papers are filled out, and then turned into the site manager by the end. So Lynn, thank you for being secretary.
And just for clarification, Jared, you're back on the agenda page, right?
Yes, I am on page 3 of the agenda, because that's all I do when I lead a meeting, is I lead the agenda, but then I also like people to help me. Yes, so we've now elected, we're on number 4, we've elected secretary and caucus
Question in the back.
chair. Question in the back. Hey, Bonnie.
Hi. Is the chairperson and secretary are for the entire, for the whole
Each
thing?
table.
At my precinct.
Not site.
So the whole, not site, just
Precinct, just your
Oh,
table, not the room.
Got it, because there's gonna be several in each location.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, and kind of on that side, like, our goal is to have
156 precincts?
156 precincts, all with a trained leader. That's not always happened. So some things that'll happen is like, so I went to this wonderful February 8th training, or one of the other ones later this month. There might be a precinct next to me that has no trained leaders. There's only like 2 or 3 of them. They're real scared to lead it on their own. So they may kind of sit at the table next to me, listen to what we're doing, but they've got to fill out their own paperwork and take their own independent votes. So you can kind of have a buddy precinct, but they've got to fill out their own paperwork, and then when it comes to preference poll and delegates, they've got to take their own votes there. The last scenario, which does happen in some small areas, is when there are barely any precinct leaders, and the site manager kind of becomes the de facto precinct leaders, and just from the microphone says, all right, we are now on step 5. Please do this. We are now time for the preference poll. Please do this. And kind of runs the whole site as a whole. But ideally, the way the system is set up is that you get together with your neighbors and you do business as your group. So one thing I forgot to say, we checked everyone in. I hand you all cards. I counted 10 people. Do you guys think that there's 10 people here? 8, 10. That is how many people I have checked in on my magical list. So please make sure that you write down, Secretary, that we have 10 attendees. Because that's going to become important when we start voting. Yes?
Does the PCP naturally become the chair?
No, they are, by state law, can call it to order, but then anyone can be the chair. And you can have a contested race to be the precinct chair, if you so want to. So it is not automatic. Yeah. It's not automatic. No. No. All right. Question, Lavana.
You said you do a count. When on this agenda, when do you do the count?
I really should have done it when we called our own table precinct to order. I should have verified that on my list I had so many attendees, and I'm looking around, and we have a double count that we have 10 people with me. I can tell you, and again, we don't have a really good idea of what attendance will be for caucus this time. Last 2 years ago, we had 650 attendees. We had like 8 in my precinct. In 2016, there were 2,600 attendees, and I had 40 people in my precinct. So separation of the presidential process from caucus will probably cause us to have something in between, or something similar to what we had 2 years ago.
So are you verifying that your count matches the number of people that signed in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if there's someone missing, how concerned are you?
Missing is not as much
Like
problem.
there's 11 people signed in and 10 at your table, you just don't worry about it, you just move on?
Yes. More people, though, trying to vote that are on my list, problem. And that's a really good point, because when we vote too, like the number of cards I collect needs to be less than or equal to the number of attendees that we started with. Unless some people, if they came in late though, we're gonna sign them in. Yes, Joe.
Can I submit a proxy vote to attend the caucus?
So you cannot submit a proxy vote to attend and vote in the preference poll. What you can do is if like you want to be a PCP but can't make it, you could send one of your neighbors with your name and say, hey, I can't make it on 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday. I'm willing to be a PCP. I'm also willing to be a county delegate for preference X, Y, or Z. Or what we're going to do today is we're going to preference for college mascots, Rams, Buffaloes, and Bears is what we're going to do up here today. So you could sit in and say, I want to be a county delegate for Buffaloes, but then it's up to the people here to decide if you get elected to county assembly. But your vote, it's not a vote in the preference poll. That's a real good point. That is something we do locally. So, but you don't get a vote. It's not an absentee ballot. Okay? All right. Madam Secretary, what are we on here?
Elect precinct committee people.
Oh, good. So we've moved this up. Precinct committee people is very important to our party. Most of you are precinct committee people. They are a governing body, and I'm going to throw to Pat here to talk a little bit about PCPs. So pretend like she You're gonna do what she
I'm now
says.
not the site manager.
She's the narrator.
She's narrating this portion.
Okay, this is an example of what I talked about earlier, that we have scripts for each of the actions that we need to take. So it starts off with the chair will solicit names of anyone who wants to be a PCP. A PCP is precinct committee person. And you may,
11.
page 11. So look at page 11, page 12, and page 13 is what we will be working with. So anyway, there may be people that cannot attend the caucus, and they have sent in a note or a letter or email or whatever, saying they would like to be considered as a PCP for the election process. So please make that known to your audience. So we have written up a script here, and you can read that beforehand, or you can read it word for word, or you can paraphrase it at the time. My whole thrust here is that hardly anybody knows what a PCP is. They don't know what a precinct committee person does. So I think it's important to read it. I'm not going to read it to you now, but it's really important when you read it to hear all the things that they do, so that they know what they are going to be doing and what the expectations are for them to perform their job. So anyway, I will just paraphrase it. The precinct committee people are elected for each precinct. Their role is to work between the party and the voters and the Democratic elected officials and candidates, and to represent their precinct. PCPs are elected to serve a 2-year term. So this will be from 2020 to 2022. I like that number. And it then has qualifications for what a PCP must have in order to be elected. And then you need to let them know that they are part of the governing body. This is really a very important position to our party. Not only do we support the candidates, but we are trying to create a presence in our community. And this is how we're going to flip Weld County to make it either purple or really deep blue. We need to educate people on what our structure is and how people work in it and what we are all about. So anyway, let them know that once they sign the paper, that they will be contacted by a representative, and that will be me. And let them know that there will be online training materials sent to them, and we will have classes after the caucus in order to give them more information and tools for them to operate as a precinct committee person. So after you've read or paraphrased this in bold print here, you will then say, are there any persons in the audience here who would like to be a precinct committee person? So let's pretend that you have the one person that sent in their note that they wanted to be a PCP person, and you have 2 people that raised their hand. You now have to decide on who is going to be elected. So you actually do a hand count. So going back to the count, and if you turn the thing over, you'll see that we're going to have the PCPs, when they are elected, that we need to know how many people were in attendance and the number of votes each PCP received, and the signature of the presiding officer, and that's the chair of that precinct. So, okay, so now we do, yes, Jane?
Just a quick question. So a person who is not in attendance sends something in writing to whom?
They would send it to the county office.
Okay, how does the county office then get that information to the precinct chair?
That will be included in the packet that you will be receiving as a site manager. You'll be distributing the packets to the precinct person that's leading that caucus, and they will have it, and it will be put in this section that this person wanted to be elected.
And what happens if someone walks in with their neighbor's commitment?
That's better.
To whom do they?
It's easier.
So I like to say, because we've done that, but in the mess of papers, sometimes those have been missed. So I'm telling you to communicate out, and like PCPs as you're calling your precincts, it is better if you could send it with a neighbor. If you send someone, or at least that's going to the same caucus site, that says so-and-so is absent from precinct 299, they'd like to be PCP, they want to be a county delegate for Senate candidate Rams or something like that. We have communication, you can call the office, but then we've got to pack 154 packets, and we've had, like Pat said, people dump out the packets on the table and papers get everywhere. So send it with a neighbor is option A. Ken?
Clarification, is it required to be a request or in writing?
No.
It can be verbal, I believe.
Yep.
So,
And then you have to trust the person who's giving the verbal message,
Yeah.
and then you decide whether you want to go for that person on that basis, I suppose. But with all willing to
I'd love to have it more in writing. Again, it's really up to your precinct, but like, because we've had also where you could call, because you're like, yeah, I think so-and-so would like to be a PCP, but I'm not sure. Or would like to go to county, and like, we've had times before where we called and verified, hey, you're not here today, but do you want to go to county assembly or to precinct? Paper note is the best for the neighbor.
But if that person, if somebody is bringing in and saying Sally Sue wants to be, you have to check to see if they are registered. They have to go
They should
through
also
the registration process to
Yeah.
make sure they are, they're
Yeah.
in that precinct, because you could have the precinct stop at this street and that street over there is not covered.
There's also a lengthier requirement of affiliation and registration,
Yeah,
So it needs a little bit.
and that's on the bottom of paper left.
yeah. It's the old rules. Hold on.
All right, what happens if no one volunteers?
Then when your precinct has no PCPs, which,
You get down on your knees and you beg.
all right, so can we model that part, or you got more?
Well, then, okay, so in a nutshell, you've announced what you're going to do, you're going to be selecting PCPs. You're also then going to tell them what a PCP does, and then you're going to tell them they're going to get information, that somebody's going to contact them, and it will be followed up. And then if they are interested, you say, come on down, and sign this paper. And this sheet will ask them for their name, their voting address, their email address, and their cell phone. And we're saying that email is required for official business because we transfer a lot of information via email. So we can't just have a cell phone number. So we need a cell phone number and email address. Okay, so now you've done you've said, okay, got your candidates, you voted, and then you've collected this information. How many were in attendance and how many voted and the signature. And you then have them fill this out, and then you hand the paper to your secretary. And then you say, oh, I forgot one very important thing. At the table, you will have this beautiful thing developed by Lauren Yater. Thank you, Lauren. It is a brief summary of what a PCP does. So you will have a copy of that in your packet, which you will have on the table, and you can, as people come in, you can say, please look at this and read it, and this is what we will be dealing with, electing PCPs. So then, okay, I think we've done it, and then you say, okay, this section is done. Thank you very much.
We'd like to do that. We like our PCPs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, but
Pretend I said all of what Pat said. That's what you should do, and read and summarize this form, explaining what a PCP does. You say, who would like to be PCPs for our precinct?
I would like to be a PCP.
Please,
I want to be a PCP.
Isabel. Are there any others? No. If you really want to vote,
Do I want to be a PCP? I was like,
Jesse wants to be there.
okay. I mean, you would vote. If you had 3 people, you're going to raise hands.
I want
People,
to be a PCP.
you're going to make us vote?
Yeah.
2 times.
Isn't
You
that what
ready?
you wanted to do?
No?
I do not want
I
to.
mean, unless you all want to see a vote for PCP.
yes. Well, I think
Yeah.
that's an important thing here. You've got 3 PCPs, After the election, that one PCP that didn't get elected is then given a volunteer form for them to fill out, so that we can then take that and they can become, I'll talk with them, and they'll become part of the team in that precinct. Not a PCP person, but a volunteer.
Okay. We just do two, or?
We can just do two.
Okay. You would raise your hands, vote for two. All right, so all in favor of Elise and Isabel being PCPs, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. And then I would have them start filling out page 12 and make sure that they return it to the caucus secretary. Now I have a question about this form.
Is it going to be 212?
You have a question about it?
I do. So it says presiding officer down here.
Who is
Is that,
Caucus chair.
is that the caucus chair?
Yes.
When does the county chair sign all the PCP forms?
That's a different form. That's a whole different.
Why is there another form?
We're putting them all together on one sheet.
Can we talk about a change?
Oh, okay, let's do that first.
Okay, this year, we've asked the county clerk, rather than having us fill out individual precinct carbon forms and all that stuff that then have to be notarized by signed by the county chair, notarized after all that. We've asked the county clerk, would they allow us to submit a spreadsheet of all of the precinct committee people who filled out this form? And we'll have the spreadsheet signed by the county chair and notarized after they're approved at the county assembly. And they have agreed that we can do that. So you will have this one and not the other one. And just another note, you asked Lavonna about if nobody volunteers. The county executive committee can fill vacancies in precinct committee people throughout the 2 years. Some of you were appointed midterm. So keep looking. If you have somebody who's not there, you think they'd be a good PCP, contact them afterwards and then let Pat know, and we will have the executive committee appoint them.
Ken?
If you do have a vote, do you take one vote and select the top two on the rank order, or do you cast two votes, one for each position?
I would say your first opening method is raise a hand vote, you get a vote for two. Because that's what it would be like on a ballot. If you have a two-person district, you would get two votes. If your precinct would like to select a different method, it's technically, and that's in the rules, like your precinct can kind of create some of its own rules, but it can't break state law or party rules. So, like you can't elect 3 PCPs, that's against state law. You can't elect more delegates than what the county central committee just allocated. But in the methods of voting, there's a little wiggle room there. Okay, there's 2 other hands I saw. Joe?
Going back to the signature of presiding officer, I wasn't very clear, is that the site manager or the caucus?
Caucus chair.
Caucus chair.
That does what?
Caucus chair signs this form.
Yes. There will be 2 copies in each packet because each new committee person fills out that form. There's not one form for 2 people. Each of you fill out that form. The precinct chair signs it, and then after we do get them all in, we take care of it from there.
Okay. Because in the past, the county chair had to sign all 150 some forms. It was great. No, well, whatever. I had to sign a lot of forms, so I'm signing one, certifying one. Yeah.
So if there's a situation where you have a teeny tiny caucus like mine, and the person who is elected as a PCP also is the caucus chair, they'll sign it twice.
Yes.
Okay.
Write your name, sign for yourself. We've had that happen, yes. You can elect yourself as a delegate, you get 100% of the delegates, but you only get 1 delegate. Like, okay, good. So we've elected 2 PCPs.
No, we've only elected one.
We did both of them together on one motion. Is that what we did?
Yes.
Madam Secretary, right? We elected 2 PCPs?
Okay. Very good.
Okay, and they're gonna fill out the forms. All right. What's next? We're gonna sign up to be election judges, poll watchers, and volunteers.
Right.
Again, I'm gonna have Pat talk about this part. She's there.
Okay, 14, 15, and 16, we're going to be dealing with. Okay, this is set up in the same way as the PCP. It gives instructions to the chairperson at the top. And there's also multi-part form that will be in your packet. This is for the election judges to sign. And there is a brief summary in the same format as you've seen for the PCP. We'll have that on the table, and we'll make that available to people if they come in to read. And so again, the thought is, read this and paraphrase it, because people have never heard what an election judge does. And election judge can do a multitude of tasks. They are at polling centers before the day of election. They are at election centers, polling centers the day of election. They're in counting centers as the counting ballots. And they are just all-purpose people, and they're also working after the election. Election stops at 7 p.m. We now have election judges that are actually working in Greeley, counting the ballots and verifying signatures and all kinds of good stuff. We also have election judges that are couriers. They go around multiple times during the week before, and the day of the election, picking up the ballots from the drop boxes. So this explains again what an election judge does, what their qualifications are, and then it gives you the steps to take. One, read this or paraphrase it, and then have them come down and sign this. So you then open it up to the attendees and say, do we have any volunteers to be an election judge? And there is a packet that will be in your packet. There is a collection of things. This is a letter from County Clerk Carly Caucus and the manager of the election judges, Jason. And it will also have an application form for the election judge. Election judge has to go to training. They get paid $20 to go to a training or more. They also get paid for the time that they spend, and it can be anywhere from $12 to $15 or more per hour if they're working. So I see that we have some election judges in our audience here, and this is a very important task that needs to be done. And the beauty of this thing is that it's done bipartisan. We have a Republican and a Democrat sitting in front of a computer, two sets of eyes looking at the same information, and they have to agree on it. All the processes that they do, they are doing it in a bipartisan fashion. So it's excellent. So anyway, the caucus over here will have them sign this form, and this will be, it's multi-part, and we will keep a copy, and we will send a copy to the county clerk's office. The county clerk's office will then contact the people on this sheet. This is for your precinct, and there are spaces for 10 people to sign up. So anyway, I turn it over to the actual caucus.
And that's page 15 in here.
That's a sample of it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. So,
And did you say that there will be some of those letters from the county clerk?
We will have yes, we will have
Some, because they are in here.
No, this is new. We just got it from the clerk.
Okay.
So there'll be one copy in each caucus packet, the big packet.
okay. So as caucus chair, I would have said that, summarized that, encourage people to sign up to be election judges. That's not something we vote on. That is just something we sign up for. We passed around the sheet. We've had people sign up. We would like a lot more Democratic election judges, but sometimes they say a voting site is bipartisan because there's one Democrat and like 10 Republicans there. So please sign up. Please sign up. We do like a lot of availability. We have a lot of early voting, which is good for our state, and they normally take people that are available that amount of time. So if you've got a lot of time, if you have a week in June, and if you have 2 weeks in October and November, that's kind of the priority one where they take election judges. Signature boards are a little bit different. Kathy?
Is that going to be flexible time for the person that signs up? In other words, are they required to do this day, this day, this day, this day, these many hours, or are they going to be able to?
So
No, here's the thing. They like to keep continuity. When you see these folks work, I mean, they are like machines. They know exactly what they're doing, so they don't want to interrupt the process. So you are actually working for full shift or even more than a shift. Richard's election judge, and Wilma, Billy is also, and you stand there, and I've been a poll watcher, I've been like an observer, and they are doing lots of work, and you have to be able to work the computer, not in all cases, but they like that flexibility. You have to be able to lift a box that's 20, 25 pounds, because they're working really fast. And we don't know what the turnout's going to be for this presidential election. My guess is it's going to be quite high, so they may be working days after the election. If you all remember the last election, presidential election in Florida, it was a mess. We are not a mess. We are very organized. Weld County is a very organized machine, and we've got great election judges.
Like, how many hours would you say a person is going to have to?
So,
Daily, yeah, Julie.
If you work at an early voting center and you're there for like either a week or 2 weeks before, those are 8 to 5 days.
Okay.
Monday through Friday. Saturday is 10 to 2. If you are working on election day, you are working from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., which means you're going to have to be there at 6 o'clock, and you might get to go home by 10 o'clock that night. So if you're lucky. So yes, election day is a very long day. So if you think, okay, I can only work one day, then you better just work election day. I'm going to be actually working at UNC for the primary in June, but apparently it's only going to be open for 2 days, so I'm working probably 8 to 5 on Monday and then all day on Tuesday. So if you know you can only work a couple of days, please let them know that ahead of time. I can only work, maybe that weekend before, but if you're available for the weeks before for early voting, those Monday through Fridays are 8 to 5 days.
And Jason will contact you individually and talk about what you can do and how what fits for you and what fits for them.
cool. So we've signed up for election judges, and then we're also going to sign up to be poll watchers, which are volunteer. Yeah, the next two things are you. Yeah.
You finished the election judge, now you're moving into poll watchers, and it's the same setup. It's the directions for the chair and a summary. And we talked a little bit about poll watchers before, so I won't go over that. But we do have a form, and we also have the same format that we had. We will introduce this to the people as they come through. Please read these tasks that we're going to be doing, or jobs that we're going to be following up on. And then when you get when you do the poll watcher script, people that are interested in doing this, they can fill this out, and I will be contacting them. There is a whole process that involves the county and the county clerk in order to approve and certify the poll watchers. So we will start that process soon after we fill this out, so that we're ready for the election in June. There you go.
You want to talk about volunteers too?
Volunteers. Okay. There is a volunteer form. There's also a script for the volunteers. It's very brief, and these are all the things that we need help in. We have the precinct caucus people, the PCPs. They do a lot of the work, but they also need volunteers. So there's room here for somebody to volunteer to do work with the PCPs, or they can actually work in the office, the Democratic office, and do things like data entry, answering phones, also texting. If they're interested in being part of the texting team, that would be something they would check off. Have this form. There will be forms in the packet, and the site manager will have additional forms. And so try to recruit as many volunteers as possible, and we will be then following up with them to find out a little bit more about them, a little bit more what their schedule is and how available they are to help and meet with them directly in the right way. This is important.
Okay, sweet.
Okay.
Question.
Yes, Sue.
So, I bet most of the people in this room are like me and filled out one format of this form in the past. You want a new one?
This form has been revised. We've added things to it, and
that's what I'm asking. You want this filled out?
Yes.
I'd love to update new information. Yes.
Yes.
And then Isabel can get it, and yeah, we'll get it, yes. New information is good.
There's new tasks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, question?
Just looking at this, so I can volunteer to be an election judge on either sheet. I can either do it under the volunteer.
No, you have to do the election judge process if you want to be one. This is developed so that we have this form available throughout the year, and you can use it that way. But
Yeah.
A little
Yeah,
confusing,
so-
because it seems like that's the easy way to volunteer. Just
Right.
check box.
it
So
wouldn't
you-
be legitimate.
So here's what happens. So as part of state law, people that sign up to be election judges at caucus, Republican caucus, Democrat caucus, have first priority. The county clerk's office will start calling through those names first. Now, and those names are good for 2 years, the 2-year cycle, caucus to caucus. So in between, like we hand out that form in between, and so if it's later in the year, and we're still scrambling to find election judges, like, and people on our 12-town tour or something want to, like, they maybe want to be election judge in the future, but they didn't attend caucus, that's why that box is there. But the priority, by law, is election judges that signed up at caucus will be called first. So that's why that happens.
And it's important because we have elections every year.
Yeah.
And what we need is a big critical mass of election judges, because people need to take vacations. Richard and Billy need to take vacations and things like that, so they can't be election judges every year. It's important that we have more.
Yeah.
Might I just add, if you're not looking to be an election judge, in which case go talk to Pat, talk to me, because I'm the volunteer coordinator, and I desperately need volunteers. So just hit me up. I'm very available. I would love to grab coffee and see what your availability is. We're definitely looking for people to get more engaged, so give me something to do.
Very good. All right. Are we now ready to do a preference poll?
Don't forget donation.
Oh my goodness. We should ask for money. The party needs money. The quick pitch, there's a script there. The quick pitch. We are running 100% by donations. We need to fund our office. We have an office in Greeley. We have to pay for all these caucus locations. We have to pay for Northridge High School for assembly. It costs thousands of dollars.
I can say something real quick.
Yes, to do these things.
You know, in 2016, we did in amounts of $5, $10, $20 pay for the caucus and assembly process and what we collected at caucus. So let people know, it costs us thousands of dollars literally, and any amount is appreciated. And you will have donation envelopes. Okay.
Pass those over, let's collect them, put them back in the packet. Okay, so we did that, you all donated, you don't have to. That's a big thing in our party, in the Democratic Party, you don't have to pay to vote. That other major party does weird things like that, they call them badge fees or credential fees. We do not have to pay to be a PCP or a delegate or anything like that. Okay? All right, now, is it time?
Yes.
All right, so I would like us to turn to page 22 and talk about the delegate selection process. So that took us a while. In fact, that did take us an hour, right? That's the goal. If you have not started your preference poll by an hour into caucus, so by 3 o'clock, right? We start at 2. By 3, make sure that's a good goal, because we want to go through the delegate selection process, do platform, and be done with caucus by 4 o'clock. 2-hour length caucus is kind of the general thing that we're telling people. So that's about right. Amazing. Okay, so we're going to get ready to take a preference poll. Again, we're taking a preference poll for the U.S. Senate race. We have been notified by the state party that there are 5 candidates running through the caucus process. Does anyone have those written down real quick? Because I can tell them from memory, but I don't want to get it wrong. I will tell you in our little precinct right here, we can get that later. Our little precinct, we're going to caucus for Buffaloes, Rams, and Bears. Go UNC, CSU, and CU. All right, we'll see who wins. As appearance to not be biased. Again, the party is neutral in primaries. So I don't want to run a caucus right now and actually preference for the U.S. Senate candidate to show that we have we have interest, we have no bias in trying to run a caucus that's 100% for your favorite U.S. Senate candidate right now. So we made up some candidates. In here, I think they're cartoon characters.
Okay.
All right, so this is a good question about the being present to vote. So the people at the time of the preference poll are the people that get a vote. So if someone came in late and have arrived before you started your preference poll, and you sign them in, they can vote. If someone was here, did all the business, but had to leave before you started, they cannot vote. I mean, they could have submitted their name to be a delegate, but that does not count as a vote in the preference poll. So, a couple reminders you want to tell them. A candidate needs to receive 15% of the preference poll to get delegates. So this is a similar thing as Iowa. Okay, we will take a straw poll, which is very unofficial, and then we are going to have people allowed to advocate for their candidates, and then we will take the official preference vote. Is there anything else on the sheet I should say before we get started? Yes, Hannah.
How many delegates do we get?
Oh, our precinct, we've been notified by the County Central Committee that met on February 8th that our precinct 299 gets 5 delegates. It's in the caucus packets that you'll be given. It'll say how many county delegates you get. So we're going to get 5 delegates for our precinct. All right, let's do it. So,
Chair?
yes, Dwayne.
If you're running the caucus, can you advocate for a candidate?
Yes. So, what we say is we don't want you decked out and stickered out in your favorite U.S. Senate candidate. So I have chosen to keep my Rams gear over here, and I'm not wearing it right now, intentionally. Okay? I think, so tell me, this is what we've done before. When it's time to speak, we could have you speak for your candidate, no one else does, and you can vote. But we don't want you to be there the entire time, like decked out and like saying, oh guys, we've all got to be Rams. I'm running the show and you should vote for Rams because of me. Like that's not allowed. Right, Carol?
And what we do ask is the folks at the site manager should not wear any candidate material.
Yeah.
And even the folks who are helping at the site information table, did you talk about that? No.
A little.
The table is people come in the door, they don't remember their precinct, there'll be a list there. Those folks, we ask you to low-key your candidate stuff. We don't want anybody to feel like, oh, this is a stacked deck. Site leaders don't wear anything. Caucus leaders, you know, you're just a volunteer. We ask you, could you like not wear emblazoned t-shirts and yeah, but you certainly could stand up and speak for your candidate. Yeah.
Good questions. Okay, I'm ready to take a straw poll. So we're going to take a straw poll by raising our hands. Okay, so our 3 candidates are Buffaloes, Rams, and Bears. And you can vote for uncommitted. Uncommitted is always an option. So officially, like the caucus secretary is not going to report this vote. It's a good idea to have a count so you have an idea if your candidate may or may not make threshold. So that's what the purpose of the hand-raising straw poll is. So we ready? Please raise your hand in the straw poll for Buffaloes. You can, but we're not going to turn this vote in. So this is where we're not like Iowa. So Iowa did report their first vote. This is not quite like this. This is unofficial straw poll. All right, Rams. See how being biased like hurts us? Okay, so I had 4. Yeah, all right. 5? Okay. Bears? Three? And you can announce it. Yeah, that's okay. 3. So I saw 3 for Bears. Uncommitted? No.
Jared, could I suggest
Yep,
something?
go ahead.
Before you even start your straw vote, it might be helpful for you to know what is 15%?
Yeah.
What is your threshold?
2. Yep. Thank you. Yeah, like it is 1.5, but we deal in whole people. And it's not just because it rounds up. It has got to be 15% or more. It cannot be 14.5%. It cannot be 14.9%. It needs to be 15% or more to receive delegates. So if that was an official thing, yes, if you got 2 votes, you would be eligible to get delegates from our precinct. Okay, so now this is at the time, and again, I've lost track. This is where I should be a better caucus leader and figure out. Do we have in here that we're allowing 1 minute, Carol, per side?
We do not have that in here,
Okay,
Jerry. We'll
so-
add that.
Now, this is just going to be kind of a standard procedure that, again, your precinct can vote to change. What we're proposing for anything, if you did have 3 people running for PCP, they would each get at most a minute. We're saying now, after you've taken the straw poll, each preference group can have 1 minute to advocate for their side. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot of time, but again, if we're running short on time, you got to be mindful of us getting out in a reasonable time. You could vote to extend our time. That is allowable. But we're saying starting opening bid, 1 minute per side. And same thing when we get to platform, 1 minute pro or con. If you want to extend it, you can. We would really love for you to be wrapped up and done within 2 hours. So, is anyone like to speak for the Buffaloes? We'll pretend like
Okay,
you.
I will.
Sure.
Buffaloes are indigent to this area of the world. Rams happen to be male, and I wouldn't want us to be misogynistic.
There's a Rams women basketball team.
And bears, I'm okay with bears. I could be bought for bears.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Who would like to advocate for Rams?
Well, I'm just gonna say, in my family, we have a long history of Rams. And so, you know, they all went to CSU, and so I paid a lot of money to that club. That's why I'm voting for that.
And I'm gonna have to piggyback.
Okay, you can add if you got a minute. It can be more than one
I'm gonna
person.
have to piggyback
Yep.
off of Lynn. My son just graduated from there, and we paid a lot of money into that school as well, so that is why I'm going for the Rams too.
I have to, well, I think it's a terrific land
So much
grant
time. Yes.
university, and I am an alumni of CSU, and I stand by them 100%.
Okay, I feel like we're at our minute. Again, we
After our time.
could, once when we get to the end, we could extend. Let's get to Bears. Would someone like to speak on behalf of Bears?
I would like to. Might I point out, buffaloes are not indigenous to the United States.
Oh.
That is bison. Also, Rams are male, and CSU sucks because I'm a bear. And that's all I have to say. Go Bears!
Those are fighting words, right?
Did anyone want to speak? You can have someone speak for uncommitted. I mean, we didn't have any in the straw vote, but that doesn't mean that someone could change their mind and speak for uncommitted. I'm assuming nobody
What's
wants.
the advantage of being uncommitted, or disadvantage, or whatever?
I've been trying to figure that out for a lot of years. I mean, you have more time to make up your mind. I mean, I can say I was uncommitted, like for CD4, like, well, see, that wasn't a preference poll though, but like going into the county, because I just hadn't made up my mind. And so like, no, I can say I could do that going to the US Senate Pro, like I may be uncommitted and not decide until later, but you need enough uncommitted to send you as an uncommitted delegate. And they can choose later. Now, here's also a really good time to tell you, when we elect our delegates, in the Democratic Party, delegates are not bound. They are not forced to vote for that candidate that they are pledged to. You always have the right to change your mind. Again, we're not making any final decisions. None of these assemblies are making any final decisions. They're just placing names onto the primary ballot. So you can, something can come out, a candidate could drop out, or something could happen for cause you to change your mind, and you may change your mind at the next step at county or state. Now, be mindful though, like why the system is set up the way it does is because, so the people though that sent you were all for your candidate. So think about them when you're moving from level to level. But you technically can in the Democratic Party at any point change your mind. Pledged means you can change your mind. We are not bound. We're not required by law. We're not bound. Okay. All right, yes.
We did a quick addition to this packet this morning about the index cards. So back on that page, and I'm not going to have you look at it, but back on that page 5.5, it also has a section that says page 22.5. That just talks about the use of the index cards during the preference vote. So basically what it says, I'll just tell you and then you can read it later, that when the official preference poll starts, which is what Jared's about to start, that card that you got when you checked in that had your precinct number on it, you're going to write your Senate candidate preference on that card and just sign your name. And then when Jared says, okay, you've all filled out your cards, all right, I'm going to call candidates. I'm going to call the Rams first. No prejudice. And those of you who are voting for Rams, hold up your card.
Do you want to do it?
You want us to do that?
So let's do it. So I'm going to say you may write your preference on your card and sign. We're not printing?
Yes? These instructions say we're printing.
You're printing, I think.
We are
Printing our names on our ballots. So I should have a Senate, I should have a 299, I should have my Senate preference, and then my name printed.
Sign. It says print your candidate and sign the card.
Okay.
Buffalo?
Just do both. Just, yeah.
We need to decide this today.
Well, the print you can. We need to be able to read and understand what your candidate is.
So printing your candidate.
We never will be able to read your signature, or even for some people, their print.
That's true.
Okay, so what are we doing?
Okay, so print your candidate name so
Okay.
we can understand it,
Print the Rams.
and sign however you scribble and sign.
So printing candidate, signing yourself.
Yeah.
Is that what the instructions say?
Yes.
Yes.
Instructions.
And are we good with that, Ann? I mean, again, I was against names, but, okay, let's do it. We're doing it. This is
We're not
precedent.
throwing out a ballot if you printed your name.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Oh, question, Julie.
So does that mean you give them the card, but you stress to them, do not fill it out until after the straw poll?
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, they can, but,
And after arguments.
and after deliberation, yes, yes, or avocation, yes.
Candidates and arguments.
Sure, okay, so we filled out our cards, and so the protocol, we're gonna hold them up and have the secretary collect them?
Have the count with the card in the air. This way, we're not worried about if somebody wandered in from another table and you can't figure out, am I supposed to count that person or not? You'll count the people who are holding their card up in the air.
Okay, so let's do it in the order that I've been doing. So please hold up the Buffalo preference cards. So secretary will record that as 2. Do you all see 2? Yeah,
And you're
so
using your math worksheet right now.
and we really are. Would we like to help model that? Okay, so Lynn, the caucus secretary, is now filling out the math worksheet. The math worksheet is on page 24. We don't have a blank one. So if you want to follow along with us, she's kind of writing it off to the side.
That's 2.
25 is 10 people, so that math is easier on 25.
Okay, so we've got Buffaloes have 2 in the preference poll. All right? All right. Ram cards. 5. You all see 5? So this is a way to check. Like, we want to be sure of these results. Like, we agree. We see these results. And so there's not a question about a recount or something like that. We look. We have a couple people count to verify that we have 5. Okay?
You have a couple.
And then they have a post.
Yes. Yes. Bears, hold up your cards. Uncommitted, hold up your cards.
How many did Bears get?
Bears got 3.
That's 110.
No, that's 10.
3 and 5.
It changed from the straw poll, right?
No,
five.
Oh.
I say,
Okay.
2, 5, and 3.
So, Caucus secretary announced the preference poll results,
Buffalo, 2, Ram, 5, and Bear, 3.
and that adds up to 10, which is what I have signed in. The number of votes should be the number of people that signed in or less, because people could have left. If it's more, you have a problem you need to figure out. So are we saying that now these go to the secretary? Right? These all should go to the secretary and in the caucus packet. Okay. All right. Here begins the fun. So, first thing we identify is threshold. Threshold for 10 people is 2 votes. So all of our candidates have made threshold. If someone got 1 vote, they would not get a delegate, and we would change our denominator, our total number of votes that made threshold, to 9, and we would be dividing by 9 as we do this. I should probably look at this.
Jared,
Okay.
another option is to switch over and use the actual votes on one of those examples, so people can see. I don't think they'll be able to see this at all. I can see it. You can.
Can I talk through this one and then we can look at some of these?
Yeah.
I'd like to talk, because this happened live, so we're going to do math on the fly. These two have been done for you, and we can go through them and ask questions about them. All right, so we've written in column B the votes, and C we have votes that made threshold, so that's the same in our case. Column D is total, so there were 10 votes that made threshold, so we're going to put 10s there in column D. Oh, because they also, I got you. Okay. We got our calculators warmed up and ready, folks?
Yep, it's so easy with these numbers.
Yeah, that's true. What am I doing?
0.5 and 0.3.
He teaches math.
I know. Don't. All right, so column C, or column E, is column C divided by D. So the number of votes in the preference poll divided by the total number of votes total, which is really easy, divided by 10. So we've got 0.5, 0.2, and 0.3. Correct. Oh, this is going to work really out well with 5 delegates too. Sorry, I thought this would be a random example, but you've got 2 examples on here that are a little weird, yeah. Then, as we're doing this as a 2-step process, we are multiplying by the number of delegates allocated for our precinct, which is 5. So we were doing, I'm so sorry.
No, we do.
My precinct 299 up here gets 5.
We do the actual.
So we're doing 0.5 times 5.
2.5.
We're doing 0.2 times 5,
1.
which is 1. And we're doing 0.3 times 5.
1.5.
So we are going to do a coin flip. Look at that. So this is where Democrat rounding rules are different than you learned in school. So, because the first step is you need to assign the whole number of delegates, the whole part of the number. So Rams will have 2 whole delegates to start. Buffaloes will get 1 whole delegate. And Bears will get 1 whole delegate. See, the problem is we can't round both those numbers up because then we'd have 6. That's the problem. That's why we can't use the elementary school rounding rules. Problem is they're their exact same decimal part. So then, if the decimals were different, you'd rank the decimals. So the 5th delegate would go to the highest decimal. The problem we have is they're both 0.5, and we're going to do a coin flip for the last delegate.
Between all 3 of them? Or
Nope, so
between Bears and
so because Rams have allocated 2.5 delegates, and because Bears have 1.5 delegates, we've already assigned them their whole pieces. We still have a delegate left over, but they both have half a delegate. In previous years, we've allowed for half delegates. We are doing coin flips for last delegates. Sue.
So it has to be a coin flip. I have in the back of my mind that we've let the precinct
We have.
decide and draw.
Oh yeah, it is. The official rules is by lot. By lot is flipping a coin. Again, if you had a 3-way tie, put 3, the names in the hat, and draw 1 or 2 or however many it is. You could have cards where we're going to do this. So, are we doing this?
Do it. And
Yes.
again, we're only flipping a coin because the 0.5s match. If there's
Yes.
a 0.8 and a 0.5 or 0.2.
We'd be fine.
Okay.
Would take it.
Yeah. And you can't have a 6th delegate because we've only been allowed at 5. So this is fun. Okay, so Rams heads, Bears tails.
Bill, we get to call it? Yep.
Who would then call it? I would say you assign your lot
Yes.
to things. So Rams is heads, Bears is tails. I'm gonna flip it and flip it over.
Rams head.
Heads. Oh, that does look great. So I'm for Rams. This is why you shouldn't, yeah. You could have.
Couldn't we call it?
You could, well, but like then, how to be called? Okay. So then, so we've assigned 3 delegates to Rams, 1 to Buffs, and 1 to Bears. I will tell you another odd thing that happens. The biggest, most questions I got when I was a site manager is if you have a candidate that receives like 60% of the preference poll and then 40% of the preference poll, but there's an even number of delegates, there's like 2 or 4 or 6 delegates, and they both get the same number because of the way the math works out. That feels wrong, but like the way we can't parse out human beings, like it works out that way. Like you've got to do the math worksheet, follow it, and so you've got to win by more if you're going to get 75% of the delegates and 25% of the delegates. So like you could win by like 62% even, but still have the same number of delegates. Again, this is just the narrowing down process. This is not the final vote. We will take a final vote where everyone can vote, Democrats unaffiliated, in June for Senate. Okay.
During that delegate selection process, can anybody change?
So you could have changed
Yeah,
after your straw poll,
only after the straw poll.
and then, but when we've raised our hands with our cards,
Okay,
that's it.
okay.
So I can't just say, oh, I really meant this so it works out. No, we're done.
Okay.
We've passed the finish line. We're not changing. Same thing now, so now,
Well, can't the person, if a person doesn't have 15%, don't they then get to align with? Okay.
so now Colorado, in Colorado, we're taking unofficial straw vote. And then you can make your own choices about what you do next. It's not on automatic, oh, it looks like I'm gonna not make threshold, so I'm gonna change. You could stick it out. I had someone last time in my precinct that was gonna make threshold, someone convinced them in the discussion, and it did change, and that preference group didn't get thresholded. But there's not a third alignment. We are not Iowa. We take a straw poll and a preference poll. No, Carol?
No, but what Ann's getting at,
Uh-huh.
if,
Oh,
and one
to
of
vote
the
for delegates.
examples in
Yeah.
here is
vote for
uncommitted,
delegates.
I think had a vote but didn't make the 15%. So it changes the denominator, and you'll see that when you look at your example. So then the question is, that person whose candidate didn't make threshold, what happens to them when you break up into candidate groups? Well, that's when the person whose candidate didn't make threshold gets to go join any group. Join any group and help elect delegates. They could run as a delegate for that other candidate if the group was willing to accept them. So it's not reorganizing in terms of changing the preference vote. Once that formal vote's done, it's done. But you're not ruled out of the process of helping to elect delegates or run as a delegate. You just have to go pick another candidate.
Yeah.
And you can change between straw poll and.
Yeah, between
Yes, that's what I was
straw
trying to
poll
say,
and the formal poll, you bet, you can change.
Question?
What do you do for the attendee who just didn't pay attention and they wrote a name down before the straw poll?
Is it a name that's eligible to run? Is that what we're talking about?
Yep. Let's say it is.
Oh.
Let's say even if it's not. Let's say that somebody jumped the gun and just wrote it.
So
they can scratch out on their side.
They can, yeah.
They can. They have to
Yeah, that's okay, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
It's like you get a replacement ballot. Or scratch it out and change.
The cards aren't unofficial things. They're just more for record.
Yes, they're for a
So it really
paper
doesn't
trail.
matter if someone scratches it out. We're not trying to be super.
Yeah. Again, we were just gonna raise our hands, we decided to go with the paper trail. So at this point, those of us that voted for Rams are gonna get together and select which of us, 3 of us can go to the county assembly and convention technically. The people that voted for Buffalo are gonna get together and select their 1 person that can go to the county assembly, and the Bears will get together and select their 1 person. You could have moved into groups earlier if you have a lot. What I found normally is like, and this was 16, we had a lot, so we did move into groups early. Even for the straw poll, it's just easier. Like at a table this size, I mean, we could maybe figure it out. But if we did, we could physically move together and decide, negotiate between the 3 of us, or have an official vote If there's 4 of us that really want to go and we only have 3 slots, again, that's the same situation. You can vote for 3 people, top 3 vote getters wins. So, we're going to pretend like we did that. Okay, yes, Mary.
So you talked earlier about how people like me
Yeah.
might be driving around
Yep.
and not be there for the straw poll. So I've written a letter saying I want to be a delegate, and I'm not there. Nobody knows who I'm going to vote for. Or should I indicate who I'm going to vote for, since I'm not really privy to the discussion? But how do I end up being a delegate if I'm not there?
So that's where I think they should come with your preference on it.
Yeah, okay.
And so your notification, your letter would go in, and we could decide, those of us that are present and voting, for your preference, if we're going to select you or not. It is up to the people that are actually physically present at the caucus.
Okay. What happens? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
What happens? Because I've never caucused before.
Yeah.
What happens if Rands gets 3, right? And
Yep.
you have 5 people, but only 2 of them want to go. What happens to that last delegate?
Yes. This is a really good question, Bailey. So we're saying we get 3, only 2 of us can go. So.
And there's no one that's in the paper that says they want to do it.
Right. So this is where, in past years, we've called people on the phone and see, hey, can we put your name on? You're not here, but can we put your name on? And you need to actually talk to them. You can't just say, yeah, I think Joe can go. That's not okay. This is where you can, so tell me if I'm wrong, Carol, you can cross-preference. Like if we're willing, as a RAM group, to accept someone, the preference for someone else, you can do that. Right, yeah, like it's, but if it's just, we think it's good for our precinct to have 100% representation, they could do that.
So if we, since we have 5 of us and only 2 of us can go, and Hannah and Rob were the buffs, and Rob can go, we would ask Rob if he would come to be a delegate for the Rams.
He'll be
Well,
written as a RAM pledge delegate, but he can choose to vote for wherever he wants to. He could honor that preference because you were selected by the RAM group,
Right.
if he so chooses, but it's up to him.
Okay.
Now the other option, I've thought about this, we haven't talked about it. We really do want people that are committed to go, that are free on March 28th in the morning to go. Since we're allowed proxies though, we technically could elect a delegate that can't go, and they could send in their proxy for that preference.
I think that'd be better.
Like, I want that to be,
Sorry, Rob.
that's allowed is what I'm saying.
Yes.
We really want people that are able to go, but with the rules as they have changed now, you could elect someone that is there that says, nope, I'm going to be skiing, I'm going to be at the conference, something. But they can then assign, they have more time to assign their proxy to someone else, and they could be assigned outside their
Yeah.
precinct.
And we actually had that situation. We know we're going to have it with someone
Okay.
who can't be there on March 28th, when the county assembly is held, but will be at the caucus. So wants to go to state. So she will ask to be elected at the caucus, if her group's willing to. She'll be on the list. She'll send in a proxy. She could designate somebody else in her precinct or send it in unassigned to a person, but with her preference on it. She wants her preference on it. When we credential people at the county assembly, we will assign that proxy to someone of the same preference. Has to be the same preference. And that way, that delegate who couldn't be there could still fill out the form that says, I want to go to state.
Which we're going to do now. Yep.
Right? Yeah. So there is a way for someone who couldn't be there on the 28th to still run as a state delegate. If there aren't enough other people in the precinct who want to go.
Yes, so please turn your pages to page 26, to your packets to page 26. So we're going to pretend like we moved into groups, the Rams figured out who their 3 people are, the Buffaloes and the Bears figured out their 1 person. Okay, those people that are elected as delegates need to fill out this form. Something new this year is the state party is trying to collect demographic information. We would like to be a diverse party. So we would like to know how that is going. It is optional if someone feels uncomfortable with it, but this is now part of this form. I want to make you aware of that. Okay? So make sure they fill out the rest of this. They're going to get a call, which I feel like is the next page, 27. So the secretary needs to hand them their official call that says the county assembly is March 28th at Northridge High School. Then, we would really like you to do this at caucus, but you could wait until a day that we may have decided a week before.
The 21st.
Okay. You can say right then and there, at county assembly, I would love to sign up and be elected to the state assembly convention or the CD4 assembly convention that Sherry spoke about earlier. So like if you want to go all the way, or at least the state or CD4, you can sign up right then, and then your name is on the ballot if we need to make ballots when we get to county. The only way for you to be elected as a state delegate or CD4 delegate is if you do notify the party that you want to be a state or CD4 delegate and then get elected at county. So either you can fill out this form that night, or you can send us an email by March 21st so that if we need to make ballots, we're going to make ballots.
Do you select one of these options? Could you select multiple?
You can go to everything. There's 4 options there, right? So let's go through these because I was confused in 16. So the CD4 assembly, yep, is that congressional candidate. So if you already know what congressional district 4 candidate you want, you can write it down there. If you don't know, you can write uncommitted. Okay, and then you'll be on the uncommitted ballot at our county assembly. This is the first time that you might identify which presidential preference you are in this process. So you voted by November, my goodness, it's almost time to go. Tuesday, March 3rd, and you want to go to CD4 convention, you can say which presidential preference you are. You will already have known the results, because it's been like 4 days later, so we have an idea of the results. Same thing, if you want to go to state assembly, that's your U.S. Senate preference. If you want to be a state convention delegate, that is your presidential preference. And again, the reason why we do care about presidential preference now at this point is because at state and at CD4, those convention delegates will get together and select our national convention delegates. Colorado's allocated 67 national convention delegates. 5 will come out of the 4th congressional district. Then we will elect, so all the congressional districts get a bunch, add up to 44. The rest are elected at state at large.
But for the Senate, it's only for people caucusing,
Yes.
it's not people petitioning.
Right, so for the Senate, it has to be a preference, of someone that is actually going through the caucus assembly process. Did anyone find that email of the 5 people? Should we do it?
Yeah.
Hickenlooper, Romanoff, Trish Zornio, Stephanie Spalding, Eric Underwood. The 5, is that 5?
Yes, that is 5.
5.
That is the beginning.
So then who else is
Yeah. So Lorena Garcia is petitioning, Diana Bray, see this is where I'm going to leave someone out.
Michelle Ferrigno.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Is there
There's more, I think.
an uncommitted? So you can be uncommitted. You can be uncommitted to an assembly, but there shouldn't be an uncommitted to a convention. Because there's no uncommitted on the presidential ballot. It's good times. Laws are different. It's our first time. Okay? All right. Any questions on selecting delegates? Awesome. So then, it's now 4 o'clock. We're going to talk about the platform. Do you want to briefly talk about the platform, Pat?
So this is, as you see, we spend a lot of time on this, and that's why we moved everything else about the structure of the party to the beginning. So now you have a little bit of time left, and this is where, very little time, where we will talk about the platform committee. We have to make a report. At the county party, we have a platform committee who looks at different issues as they come up and develops resolutions. So anyway, you're opening it up to the precinct members to submit a resolution.
And a resolution, again, this is set up the same way, tells you what to do, tells you what you should read or paraphrase. And a resolution is just a simple motion that can be stated in writing or voted on at caucus. When you get your packet, you may have attached to it, somebody may have been very familiar with this process and have submitted something. This is an example that we had from the last election. Somebody was interested in universal health care platform for the caucus. So they had it put in a format that was the resolution. So you may have one in your packet or you may have none. So you open it up and you ask, are there any resolutions? And if there is a resolution coming from the floor, there has to be a sponsor. You have to open it up to the attendees and say, is there a sponsor for this revolution? And if there is a sponsor, then you take it forward for a hand vote, and you can move on and discuss it. And you can get 2 minutes to discuss that resolution and do your hand vote. If there is no sponsor, it doesn't go any further. So this is like, you have like 5 minutes before the caucus is over, so this is a very rushed process. And there is a form here that's in your packet. I don't have the page number, but if there is a resolution from the group, page 30, they can fill it out here. If they don't have it in writing, they can write it here and give a name to it, or they can refer to the one that was in the packet. Is there anybody, would anyone like to add anything to it, like Ann? Is there anything I'm missing? Jerry? So that's it. So now the caucus can vote.
Okay. So we're going to pretend like we looked through some of the submitted resolutions, platform planks. We talked about it 1 minute pro-con. The ones that we're really passionate about, that someone here really wanted to sponsor, we voted on. We wrote them down in the packet. If there's something new that we wanted to bring, we would talk about it, 1 minute pro-con, and write it down, put it in the packet, and then we would be almost done. So there will be a committee meeting in between caucus and county assembly to kind of talk about ones that are like duplicates, if like different precincts have similar ideas, and submit a full report to the county assembly that we will vote on individual items, yes or no, which is what we've traditionally done in the past. The state party platform operates a little bit differently. There's representation from every house district across the state, and we vote on it as a whole document. And the state assembly delegates will do that in April. Okay. Any questions about platform? Any questions about anything? Because we're like at the end, right? Yes, Sue. Yeah.
So will we have, like we have in the past, a checklist of the paperwork that?
Yes.
Where page is that?
Page 32. Back, page 32.
Packet return instructions on the very back.
Back return. Yep. You're welcome. Other questions?
Yeah, I have
Yes,
one.
Hannah.
Is site leaders supposed to call in at some point somewhere?
Yes, I will get the detailed instructions. Yep. So we're not Iowa. Traditionally, the Colorado Democratic Party will want results from us, they said, by 5 p.m., so 3 hours after the start. I thought it was 2, they said 5. We will go through details with the site managers about this, but they will collect your preference poll raw results. The only thing we're reporting to the media is the preference poll raw results. We're not doing state delegate equivalents, we're doing the raw results. So the site manager will collect from every precinct what the Senate preference poll was from every precinct. We will have a system for the site managers to contact Sherry about that. She'll be collecting all sites information, tallying it with 1 or 2 other people to double check in the Weld County's office, because that's where we'll go after my caucus is over. And then she will report to the state party the Weld County raw preference poll results. Yes?
So that'll be after, if somebody doesn't meet the 50% threshold, that's it.
The preference poll results. The results written on cards that were held up.
Okay.
Not the straw poll. But so yeah, like you could have voted the preference poll and not made thresholds because you went for it, it didn't work out for you. We will report those. Yes. All of our sites, yes.
How does it get communicated? I mean, is it a phone call, email, how?
So
It's not an app.
it's not an app.
Not a shadow app.
We have traditionally called, site managers have called or texted the one person in the county. They've collected all that information. Go ahead.
So part of what the concern is that in Iowa, they oftentimes said, hey, yo, precinct, how about you just call the state line, and then we have 12,000 people call the state line, and that'll work super great. It didn't. So what we have instead is a staggered approach, where you're going to gather, as a site leader, you're going to gather the numbers from the precincts, and then as a site leader, I'm going to gather all the site for the county, all the site leader information from the county, gather all that together, and as a county, we're going to report that to the state. There's only, what, like 64 counties?
Yep, there's only 64 people reporting to
Easier
the
for
state
them to
park.
manage.
So Sherry, you would prefer that as a site manager, we take our stuff over to you Saturday right after this, right?
No, we'll talk about how the site leader will communicate with me as a
Okay.
site leader training.
Yes.
Not specific, but if, like, just getting involved, is there someone here on premises that we should check in to make sure that there isn't anything needed going into caucus? Like, that you guys are fully staffed, you don't need any helpers? Like, should I check with someone that's like, oh, if we have a site leader, we have this, you're good. We'll just show up at caucus.
Yeah.
Hi, Kowski.
Actually, we're in the process of setting that up now. I have site managers for majority of the sites, and I am also calling people to fill in the precincts that do not have leaders. And if you know somebody that's interested in doing that, have them contact me, and we will interview them over the phone, find out where the precinct is, and et cetera, and try to fill that. I think it would be easier if we had a leader in each precinct. Also, we have this training today. We will be having additional trainings because there's a fair number of people that are not here. For the site managers, we will be having a specific site manager meeting as well to go over some of their responsibilities. Carol?
Just a couple of things. At every site, we have a couple precincts where there's only one or two precincts, but at all the larger precinct sites, we need volunteers who will help in the information table process. Don't have to be precinct committee people, maybe better if they're not, because those will be the people staffing the alphabetical list when someone says, I don't know what my precinct is. They'll be finding it for them, verifying that they're registered. So yes, at every site, we will need additional people beyond just the caucus leaders. And then the only other thing that I'll suggest to you, that first attendance report that we looked at, that has everybody's name on it, before things close out, the secretary will go back and check who is a delegate on that form and for what preference. And so it's ideal before everybody takes off that you do check that and make sure that you actually have the right delegate count for each candidate, because that's the data entry form that we use for everything. So please don't leave that unmarked.
Sherry, if we have somebody show up at our desk, they're not on the list, we ask them where they live, and they're on the other side of town.
Then you're going to be like, fantastic, in fact, your precinct site is here, go have a nice time.
Yeah,
Because once you show
sorry, how
up,
do we find out where that precinct site is?
the website has that information on it. There will also be, at every site, I believe, there's going to be a list of all the other caucus sites in the county at the site leaders tables. Because that's information the site leaders are going to need to reference for when those people show up and say, I'm precinct whatever, where should I be right now? And you're like, not with me, but I can tell you where you should go.
You will also soon have a phone number. The Crooked Recorder's office is going to be open that day until at least 2.
Yeah, a few questions and then we're trying to wrap it up.
Well, one of the things you didn't talk about is the confidential voter.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Call the county elections office.
Call Carly Caucus.
Yeah, you're going to call county elections. That site manager training will go into detail about that. You, as a precinct leader, should not worry about that as much. We're going to have the site manager and the registration people kind of worry about that more.
They're the ones that'll make any calls.
Yes, I do, yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about on confidential voter, there are people, police policemen, women, court employees, district attorneys, who don't want their registration is a public record. So they can file for confidential voter status. They may have been registered as a Democrat in time they're eligible. They will not show up on any of our lists. But we can call the clerk and say, I have John Doe here who tells me his address is so-and-so. Can you verify that John Doe is eligible to participate in this precinct caucus? And they say yes. Then we have them fill out an affidavit. Yeah. So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, so if you're a volunteer signing people in or not a precinct person, you would want to know about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Barb, do you have a
That would
question?
Site leader instructions.
Actually, I wanted to make a comment. When
Okay.
you're talking about if you get somebody who's in the wrong, and you say, what's your precinct number? This can be done today, and the site is precinct numerically listed. So if I say I'm in 150, and you say, oh, okay, 150, you should be a Winograd and something. But that's even on that sheet we got today as our.
So all of you got all the sites listed today in your materials.
And if you didn't pick up and agenda, you've got a bunch of them left over there, that go out, because that will give you where the sites are.
Okay, and then we're about to break up. Just make sure at the end, so like for us, the 5 delegates would have given their paperwork to the caucus secretary. The 2 PCPs, just one more minute with me please, would have given their information to the caucus secretary. The chair and secretary would have gone through that list on the last page, making sure everything is back in the packet, and then they will give it to the site manager. Okay? If something happens, you don't know what to do, okay? Ask your site manager. That's your first line of defense, your first point of information. If your site manager doesn't know what to do, they're going to call me, or they're going to call Carol. I will give my information out to everyone. I'm on the phone with Weld Elections sometimes, settling things. Like that is our steps have been written. If I don't know, I'll call the state party. But that's kind of like if we've got questions, there's a situation happening, that is your ways to get help and information. Okay.
Jared, one more thing.
Yes, Barb.
Everybody sign on the clipboards that we were passing around.
Where are the clipboards? Right there? So make sure you've signed that you attended caucus training, because Pat probably will be contacting you. Okay? I want to thank you all for volunteering to hopefully lead your precinct. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for Carol and the Fernmore team and Barb for putting all this together. There's a lot of work that goes into this. Please help us organize, get connected, and go win in November as well. Thank you.
Happy days are here again, the skies above are clear again. Let us sing a song of cheer again. Happy days are here again. So long, sad times, so long, bad times. We are rid of you at last. Howdy, gay times, cloudy, gray times. You are now a thing of the past. Happy days are here again, the skies above are clear again.